Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Shah. On behalf of Colwas, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have another very interesting topic, and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about sampling, the concepts, the applications, and misunderstandings of it. As you know, that methodology part is so crucial, and we need the right guidance for developing sound methodology section. And within the methodology, the sampling carries immense importance. If we know how to draw sample appropriately, then our unit of analysis will be appropriate and our study will have the right contributions. So really very interesting topic, and I'm sure we will learn a lot from this session. So you will get the best insight, the right guidance and suggestion about all these things as we have an expert with us in today's session. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So before we start, I would like to thank the Kalwas again for arranging such enlightenment sessions, for their support and providing such a wonderful platform. The aim of the Kalwas is to give you the opportunity to connect and interact with world renowned speakers, academic leaders, teachers, authors, researchers, experts, professionals, and businessmen to learn from their experiences, recommendations, suggestions, and tips which will create an impact and will enable you to learn and develop yourself in order to grow and transform individually and as well as to contribute to the world in a positive way. As our slogan is come, learn, and share knowledge. So today we have an amazing person as a guest who has a vast and wonderful experience, an internationally known and recognized personality. He's a great human being, and I always learn something new from him. Uh, he contributes to the world at various platforms and always ready to share and support the people by sharing his knowledge. So let me introduce him formally. He is currently working as a professor in the School of Business, Innovation and Technopreneurship at University Malaysia Perlis. He received his bachelor degree from the International Islamic University Malaysia, MBA and Doctor of Philosophy from University Science Malaysia. He also completed an advanced diploma in teaching in higher education from Nottingham Trent University, an award-winning academic and researcher. He received the Raffles Education Founder Award for being the most deserving academic staff of Olympia College, Malaysia in 2006, Excellent Academic Support Award in 2009, the Best Lecturer Award in 2010, the Best Supervisor Award in 2018, as well as in 2019 for producing the most number of PhD graduates, and Research Excellence Award in 2020 at University Malaysia Perlis. He has also won the Best PhD Thesis Award 2011 for the Outstanding PhD Dissertation at University Science Malaysia. He is a member of Asian Academy of Management, Malaysian Institute of Management, and associate member of Malaysian Finance Associations. He is also a visiting professor of North University, Bangladesh, Daffodil International University, East Delta University, and Thammasat University, Thailand, and academic advisor of Central College, Penang. In addition to that, he has also authored and co-authored 5 books, 2 book chapters, and about 200 research papers. His writing have so for attracted about 5,50,000 reads in the research guide and about 4,600 citation in Google Scholar. 20 students completed PhD within his kind supervision. Currently, he is supervising 15 PhD and 15 postdoctoral scholars. His recent research has spanned issues related to entrepreneurship, IPO, underpricing, earning management, blockchain, blue economy, Islamic finance. A man known for his excellence and admired by the people around the globe, the one and only Prof. AMINUL Islam. Welcome to Kalwa's platform and thank you very much for joining Prof. AMINUL Islam.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You're most welcome.
Yeah, it's always pleasure, Prof, to have you because we had amazing 2 sessions with you and people around the globe. They really loved the way you present. They really appreciate your powerful content, and we have received a lot of, if I say thousands, that would be least, to have another sessions with the Prof. Aminul Islam, because he is so excellent person. Thank you very much for who you are, Prof.
Okay.
Yeah. As a reminder to the audience that Prof will be presenting, and he would leave the time for question answer session at the end of the session. If you have any question, you can write in comment section, or you can email us at info@calwas.com. So let's get started. Over to you, Prof.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Haider Shah, um, as well as the
Pleasure.
Kalwas, for inviting me to share some of my understanding on sampling. Sampling is one of the very crucial, uh, very complex, very important issue that many researchers tend to ignore the importance and significance of sampling. Well, if you are wrong in selecting the right kind of sample population, it will end up having poor quality of data. And doesn't matter how robust the methodology or analysis method that you use, it will end up having wrong findings, which is difficult, which will be difficult for you to generalize. I have witnessed a few uh, PhD differentiations whereby students have difficulty defending the kind of sampling technique they used. For me, when I attend as external examiner, even though the sampling method was wrong, I will try to tell the student this is the appropriate sampling method. So since you have already collected the data and you are at the stage of defending final viva, so I will let him go, but of course he has to make the amendments. All right. But since he have collected the data, I do not want to punish because the student already had 2, 3 supervisors to guide them. And the students also have gone through the procedures in the university where they undertake their PhD studies. I had a very close friend under a very famous professor. I do not want to mention his name. Dr. Haider Shah knows him very well, and
Yes,
he was in one of your session before. His student failed in the final viva versus session simply because his sampling was wrong. The external examiner was somehow not convinced with the sampling method used to collect the data. So he failed. And he had to collect the data again, meaning that he had to spend another year collecting data, analyzing, and then writing up chapter 4 and 5 again before he goes for second Viva versus session. So that's how sampling is important. Huh? I give you a few examples before I move into my slides. Um, when we go to the market and we like to buy, say, for example, oranges. So how we know whether oranges are good or not. If the orange is expensive one coming from Australia or US, of course, the shopkeeper will not allow you to taste the whole orange, one piece of orange. So what they might do, they might just cut it and give you a slice, and you just taste it. And when you feel that the slice given to you is tasty, looks to be nice, and you decide to buy. Now the question is, how do you know the taste of a slice of oranges would give you the same taste of the rest of oranges that you see in front of you? How can you make that conclusion? But we make that conclusion. We make that conclusion, um, as well as in Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, even in Malaysia, we do Thailand, we do eat a lot of mangoes. So when you go and buy mango, you will see every shop they will have mangoes being sliced for you to taste before you buy. And then you taste just a small slice, and then you decide whether to buy or not to buy. But the question is, how would you know the mango chosen from hundreds of mangoes represent the hundreds of mangoes? That's what is. So that's how important the sampling is. So if you are given wrong sample of a piece of mango or oranges, so if you are buying based on that, the whole bunch of mangoes or oranges that you have bought might not be as you tested, and your generalization would have failed. So when we conduct research, say for example, if you are doing a research on satisfaction on online shopping, there are millions of sample population. Millions of people do involve now in online shopping, especially from the beginning of COVID has increased the degree of participation in the online shopping. So now, if you want to collect data on online from the online shopper, how would you make sure that you get a small representative sample who represents the rest of the population? That's the question. Now, you definitely it is impossible for you to collect data from everyone. Even if you take example from Pakistan, there could be 30, 40 million people involved in online shopping. So it's not possible for you, even your lifetime, to collect data from everyone. But your PhD study is usually 3 years or to 4 years, and your data collection should be completed within 3 to 6 months. So what you have to do, we have to select a representative sample from the whole population. So later on, I'm going to share some of the tables and some formulas that allow us to decide how many sample population we should have in our study. Okay. Let me give you another funny example. Possibly you would understand better. We make fun of those people get married more than one.
Yes, Prof.
I was reading somewhere, someone was very eager to get married. He fell in love with another lady and he wanted to get married. And he found it so difficult to convince his wife. So he started talking and talking, finally managed to convince her. And then he got married, second wife. So he thought having two wives, life would be more enjoying and more beautiful. But after a few weeks, he found turns to be on the other side. He found that both wives are always quarreling and fighting and makes his life miserable. So he works the whole day in the office. He's tired. He come back in the house and he get complaint from both wives, and he couldn't sleep in the house. And finally, one day he decided to take his, the pillow and mattress to go to the mosque, nearby mosque, to sleep. So he was sleeping in the mosque corridor and he was thinking, how am I going to pass my rest of my life? I thought having more than one wife was beautiful, but it turns to be miserable. So he was thinking, and suddenly he remember he got a very close friend. He thought, why don't I find somebody do the same as me, and then he will join me in the mosque rather than I stay alone. So he started talking to his close friend and managed to convince him. And he got married, and he had the same problem. So the second guy, after getting two wives, and one night he couldn't sleep, so he took his pillow and mattress, went to the nearby mosque, and he was sleeping in a corner. And he was thinking that my friend says having two wives was so beautiful, but myself, I'm having so difficult life. And how am I going to lead my life now? And then while he was thinking, he saw the other corner, looks like somebody also lying down. So he just stood up and he went to check, investigate who is there. And he saw his friend is there. He said, how come you are here? We said, that's the reason I asked you to get married. He said, no, you told me having two wives was beautiful. So he said, you didn't tell me that you're having problem and now you are living in the mosque. And you asked me, influenced me, so I got married. And now I have to end up sleeping in the mosque. So now, with this simple example, can you conclude that getting second wife is bad? No,
Yeah.
we cannot. Right? We cannot generalize based on the
Yes,
2% only. There could be
exactly.
hundreds and thousands of people marrying more than one, and they might be living happy life. We do not know. So,
Eh,
but listening only to, we cannot generalize. So we
Yes.
have to have representative sample
Mm.
population. That's how important it is. You might be concluding wrongly because of wrong selection of sampling. Okay. So let me share my screen and
Yes, Prof. Prof, you have given wonderful two examples at the start of the session, which are wonderful analogy. I love both of the examples, which are the true reflection of this session, which is all about how to picture and how to draw the sample appropriately. Because if your unit of analysis is not right, how can you analyze it, and how? What about your conclusion? Because your analysis is not right, and then whatever you conclude is not right, and whole of your thesis is not a contribution at all.
yeah. Um okay, give me a few seconds. Let me share the screen. Share screen. Yes. Well, I think I'm having some kind of problem. Okay, just give me a few seconds. Let me. What is the
Yeah,
problem?
sure, please. Please.
Okay. Share window better. Okay, now I got it.
Yes, Prof. It's visible. Carry on, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, okay, okay. All right. All right, then um, I'm audible, right, Dr. Haider Shah?
Yes, Prof. Perfectly fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
So that's the topic we have chosen for today's discussion: sampling, concept, application, and misunderstanding. I have given a little background of the topic, how important and how significant it is in selecting the right sample. So I will start with this quote. We say, "Grow like a sampling with silence, but die like a tree with a great impact." As I said, that your study population could be used, and it would be impossible for you to collect data from everyone. So what we do, we select a small sample, representative. That's the word we have to remember. Representative sample, the small sample, but represent the big population. Okay, because at the end of the day, our findings got to be generalized. Okay, so a small sample but with a great impact. Okay, now, so this would be the outline of today's discussion. We'll be looking at the concept of sampling, the reasons for sampling. We look at some critical understanding of sampling, different sampling methods. We'll be looking at the use of probability and non-probability sample. We'll be looking at determination of appropriate sampling size. And of course, during my discussion, I'll cover some of the misunderstanding and controversies that we have with the sampling. Okay. So this is how we look at research, right? Component of empirical research, which I always have this slide in most of my webinars. So you start with identification of a research gap, research problem, and you follow on. So once you have uh, decided on instrumentation, meaning that you design your questionnaire and all that, then the question of sampling comes in. Where are you going to collect the data? All right, and then only you will proceed to collect the data. So this is the idea of sampling. I was yes,
Excuse
sorry.
me, Prof. Yes, Prof. We are at the first slide.
Oh, okay, it's not moving.
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof. Now it's moving. We can see
Oh,
the idea of sampling.
okay, okay,
Yes,
okay.
Prof. Thank you.
Can you see now?
Yes, Prof. It's visible. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So the basic idea of sampling is basically we said the selecting several elements from a population. Okay, so we can make inference about the entire population. That's what I have been maintaining from the beginning. You got to have representative, a small number of population that represent the entire population. Okay, so sampling is the selection of subset of individuals within the statistical population to estimate characteristics of the whole population. Is my slide moving now, Dr. Haider?
Prof, we are at still on the idea of sampling.
Oh, meaning that something is wrong.
Yes, Prof.
Something is
If you change manually, then now we are at the sampling Y.
yeah,
If
but
you change manually, then I think it is fine, Prof.
okay. Now it's okay. Can you see?
Yes, Prof. We can see it. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, okay. All right. So why sampling is used? There are a number of reasons. I have put it here three. Number one, for pragmatic reasons, because we have budget constraint and time constraint. It's impossible for us to reach the bigger population within the time given for your research. We do have also budget constraint, and also certain kind of research we may not have access to everyone, may not have access to the whole total population. Okay. Number two, for accuracy and reliability of results. Okay. So we say the sampling can yield reasonably accurate information. The whole population may not be even suitable to fill up your questionnaire. Okay, so we need to collect data from people who understand the instrument that you are going to use for research. Okay, so that information you collect will be more accurate. Strong similarities in population element make simple sampling possible. When you see similarities among many people, say for example, when you talk about online shopping, there is different age groups, there are different genders, there are different localities, and there are many different differences out there. So from each differences we take few people, and they would be representing the whole population. Okay, so when you have strong similarities, then it's easier for you to choose a sample. Okay, and sampling may be more accurate than census. Census is when you take the whole population in the study. So when your research involves a small population and you take the whole population in the study, then of course you will choose a census. But if it's a bigger population, we may go for sampling rather than census. Okay, it's because not everyone in the total population would be eligible, suitable to fill up the instruments that you have developed. Okay, and number three, destruction of test units is definitely reduces the cost of research for infinite population. All right. Is my slide moving? Dr. Haida is moving, right?
Yes, Prof, it's moving.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. So these are the important terminologies that we have to understand. First one is sample. Sample is a subset of a larger population. As I give you an example, a slice of an orange represent a bark of number of oranges. Okay, so it's a sample is a smaller collection of units from a population used to determine the truth about the whole population. Okay, so sample is a small subset of population. Population is universe is the whole, the entities group of people who are suitable for your research, who are concerned, the problem rooted in the people are basically the population. Okay, and every individual member of that total population, you call it population element. And as I said earlier, census, when you do research whereby you have everyone in the research, you choose each and every one. So each individual is an element, and the whole population is a census. So when you study cover the whole population, we'll call it a census. Most of our country, when the government decide to do a head count of the total number of population of the country, then we will count everyone, right? That is census. Say, for example, you are doing a study on banking, and then your sample involves managers, and you decided to take all branch managers. Then it is a census. You are not choosing anyone. You are not selecting, okay? Or you are choosing only the CEOs of different banks. So all CEOs are being included in the collection of data. That is census, okay? But if you are selecting few CEOs or few managers, then it become a sample, okay? So sampling frame, later we'll look at it. We draw a frame first, and from there we'll choose. So I will discuss more on that after this. So this is how sampling works. This is how sampling works. Who do you want to generalize to? So that is basically your theoretical population. For example, if you're doing a research on online shopping, anybody involved in online shopping, they become your population, a theoretical population. What population can you get access to? So you don't have access to everyone. So those you have access to, those become your study population. How can you get access to them? So from the population that you have where you can get access, so you now decide which method you are going to get access to. That become your sampling frame. You can reach only in that frame, within that frame. And finally, the people that you choose for your study become the sample. So I give you another example. Say, for example, you like to do a study on student satisfaction in the government universities in Malaysia, for example. Then anyone who is studying in any government universities become your theoretical population. And now you are looking at whom do we access to. So possibly, say in Malaysia, we have access to, Western Malaysia, we call it. Possibly don't have access to Sabah and Sarawak. So those you have access, universities access to those universities, that become your study population. Okay. And from there, you develop a sampling frame. Say, for example, your study involves only undergraduate students. So from there, you are now coming down into only undergraduate students among the government universities. And then from there, say for example, you have chosen 300 for your study. 300 students being chosen to fill up the instrument for your study. Those become a sample. I hope this example will clarify many of your doubts. Okay. So this is how it works. The target population, bigger circle as you see. From there, we will cascade it down into study population, and then your sample is a very small number. That's how we choose the sample for a research. This is how it is again. Your target population, then you have your sampling frame. From your sampling frame, we choose the sample. All right. I will share the slide with Dr. Haider Shah. So those of you listening to me now, attending this webinar, you can get a copy from Dr. Haider Shah, inshallah, later. Okay. So this is another way of showing how sample populations are chosen and where some errors may occur. So you have the total population, then we decide on the sampling frame, then I choose the planned sample, and finally the number of respondents that we get respond, right? So from total population to sampling frame, in this stage, we may drop certain individuals population who could be very suitable, but due to the selection method, we lose some. So the error is there, sampling frame error. From sampling frame, we decide on the planned sample. How many am I going to distribute? How many numbers of questionnaires. So when you decide using different sampling method, if it is not very suitable one, appropriate sampling methods are not chosen, then we may again drop some very suitable participants from the research. Okay, so that's where we call it random sampling error. And from planned sample, say for example, you have distributed 1,000 questionnaire to 1,000 people, and you got back only 300. So 700 decided not to respond. Okay. So you have a problem here, non-response error. Some of them are very qualified people who could give you the right kind of data, and they did not give you that data. So that's where you have the non-response error. Okay. So finally you have an actual sample for your study. So these are the stages in a sample selection method. We start with target population, as we discussed earlier, right? Then we select sampling frame. Then we determine whether it's going to be probability or non-probability. I'm going to explain that. Then we'll decide on the procedure, plan for procedure, selecting the sample units. Then we'll determine the sample size. We select actual sampling units, and finally we collect the data. Okay. This is another way of looking at it. I don't think I'm going to explain that. Okay. All right. So this slide is very important, and we must understand it from this slide. There are many controversies and misunderstandings are here. We have two groups of sampling methods: probability sampling or random sampling. The other one we call it non-random, is known as non-random or non-probability sampling. Okay. Now, how do I know whether I should go for probability or I should go for non-probability? That's the first question. Okay. So now you have to keep the two question in mind. Number one, do I have the list of total number of population? Do I have the list of total population of my study? Say, for example, you are doing a study on online shopping, and your number of respondents, the total population is 30 million people in Pakistan. The question is, do we have the list of all respondents? If the answer is yes, we will go for random sampling or probability sampling. If we do not have the list, or you cannot obtain the list of total population, then we'll go for non-probability or non-random sampling. Please remember that. When I go for the final Viva versus session as internal or supervisor, external examiner, being a chairman of a session, we look at here where the student get into trouble. Okay, they're supposed to go for random sampling, they go for non-random. Or they're supposed to go for non-random, they go for random. So if you are doing a study on earlier, as the example I've given you, the CEO or MDs or managers of banks, it's possible to obtain the list of those. If you can obtain the list, you go for random sampling. You cannot obtain the list of total population, then you go for non-random sampling. This is the first tricks that you have to remember. Okay. Number two, the research gap that you have identified, and based on that, the research problem that you have defined. So now you have to ask question: do I require to generalize the findings from my research? Okay. So does your research require generalization meaning that you are collecting 300 data, but you are going to generalize upon 1 million or 2 million people. If you need generalization, then you will go for random sampling or probability sampling. If you do not require strong generalization, then you will go for non-random sampling. Okay, I repeat again. There are two things that you have to remember. Number one, do you have the list of the total population of this study? If you have the list, you can go for random sampling. If you don't have the list or you cannot obtain the list of the people, then you go for non-random sampling. That's number one. Number two, does your research require strong generalization? If it is required, you have to go for random sampling. If your study does not require generalization, a strong generalization, then you will go for non-probability sampling. I hope I have clarified this. This is usual question that I get from a student when to choose random and when to choose non-random. And there's a lot of controversies here, even among the statisticians and social scientists. We do have also some debate on this. Okay, you can see many write-ups and papers online available which discusses a lot. Okay, the debate on this topic. All right. Now, so under the random sampling, you have six method. I have listed down here. There are a few more available also. Those are not that popular. And under the raw random sampling, I have listed down 5, but there are many also. But these 5 are the most popular one. Okay, so those are very popular one, widely used, commonly used sampling methods. I have listed down here 6 and 5. Okay, 6 random sampling methods and 5 non-random sampling method. Now, again, if you have decided based on the earlier 2 prerequisites that you have, if you have the list of respondents and you need a strong generalization, then you decided you have to go for random. But under random, you have 6. Now, which one need to go for? Okay, so that's kind of situation we are in now. So I have probability, but I have 6 methods. Which one should I choose? Okay. All right. So let me help you to settle that. Okay. So probability sampling or random sampling is basically provides each and every population an equal chance to be selected. Equal chance to be selected. Every population, nobody knows who is going to be selected. Nobody knows. The process is designed such a way that everybody will have equal chance to be selected to be a sample population for the study. Okay. Now let us look at the first one. Simple random sampling. Remember, you have obtained the list of participants and your study requires strong generalization. So you are going the first method, simple random sampling. So when is it applicable? Number one, it is applicable when your population is smaller, small, homogeneous, and readily available. Readily available. So you choose the list, and from the list you just pick up randomly. From the list, if you have to the list, and you pick up randomly. So if you have 3 million population, and then you want to choose randomly 300, you will be just tired of selecting 300. Okay, so that's why he said, if you want to use random sampling, this population got to be small and similar kind of behavior characteristics, homogeneous, and the list is available. Number 2, all subsets of frame are given an equal probability. Every subsets are given equal probability to be selected. Okay. Now we have seen how the lottery is done. So that's basically a simple example of simple random sampling. Okay. However, if the sampling frame is large, this method is impracticable. As I said, if you have 5 million people as total population and you obtain the list, how are you going to choose 300? It's simply impossible. It's not practical. It's not definitely practical. Okay. And minority subgroups of interest in population may not be present in a sample. Okay. So when you have big group, then what will happen? Minority groups will be just ignored. So you may not be able to take everybody in the sample. No. Okay, so this is the second one. We call it as a systematic sampling. This is under random sampling. Okay. So again, we have two prerequisites, remember, you have to obtain the least of total population. And number two, you need a strong generalization. Now, this sampling method is a very systematic one compared to simple random sampling. Okay. So what we do is we select from the list obtained. So when you have the list of population, and then you design a system. Say, for example, as I have given you here, 3, 6, 9, 12. That's how we select. Okay. Or say, for example, 10, 20, 30, 40. Remember, we cannot select the first one. Never we select the first one. Why? Then you know already the first one is going to be selected. Remember, here we give equal chance to all population. So the first one cannot be selected. We start from next. So it could be 2, 12, 22, 32. It could be, 3, 30, 33, 63. Every 30 you will choose one. Depending on the total number of population that you have, and then you divide it by the total number, so you will know exactly how many is required. Okay, that's what we call systematic sampling. We choose based on a system. So you obtain the list. From the list we mark it. Now, okay, I choose number 10, then 20, then 30, or I choose 3, then 6, then 9. Equal interval is given. That is called systematic sampling. Okay, equal interval is given while we select the population for our study. The third one is known as stratified sampling. Okay, stratified sampling. If your research, based on the research gap and research problem that we have identified and defined, if we need every subset of population to be equally represented in the population, then we go for stratified sampling. So we choose people based on strata. Remember earlier we said that if you are going for random sampling, you might be ignoring the small subset of population. But in this method, all subset minority group even will be represented in the selection method. Okay, so we divide the total population into small strata. Say, for example, first of all, male and female. So say in Pakistan, your male and female, the ratio is 50-50. So in our research sample, we have to make sure we have 50 male and 50 female. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we look at age group. We have above 60, then 50 to 60, 40 to 50, 30 to 40. If you have that, every group should be represented. We look at that. So every subgroup would be represented so that your study findings can be generalized. From a small subgroup of population, you can generalize into a bigger sampling. Okay, that's what we call stratified sampling based on strata. But strata sampling could be proportionate or it could be disproportionate one. So proportionate would be the number of sampling units drawn for each stratum is in proportion to the population size of that stratum. Meaning that, say, for example, you have 100,000 total population. And from there, we look at single, married, and divorce, three categories, divorce and widow. So we look at the percentage of single, percentage of married, and percentage of divorce and widowed people. So in our sample size, when you choose, we have to make sure we represent that proportionate number of population in that sample or sampling group that we have decided. Okay, disproportionate, we disregard the percentage of population to be represented. Okay, so that's how stratified sampling works. There are a few examples I have given you here. You can see here proportionate and non-proportionate. Okay, so you are having 142 from both sample, but one you are going for proportionate as percentage goes on, and this proportionate without any percentage. This is taken from Uma Sakaran. I've given at the bottom acknowledgement to Uma Sakaran. The fourth method in the random sampling is called as cluster sampling. This is also known as two-stage sampling. Okay, first of all, we choose a cluster. We choose a cluster, and then from the cluster we divide again. We divide again the sub cluster, and then we choose the sample. So, say for example, you are looking at if it is in Pakistan, say for example, you divide Karachi and Islamabad. There's two clusters, and within Islamabad and Karachi, you will have homogeneous unit. Then you take it from there. So cluster sampling is basically based on geographical segmentation. Populations are basically segmented based on geographical area. Okay, but stratified sampling was different, based on small status. So that's how it works. So please do not get confused over stratified and cluster sampling. Cluster sampling is based on geographical area. All right. So here, some examples are given. I don't think I will be going through a lot. So I've given you here, for example, in Malaysia, we have the country, then we have states, and for states, we have districts and all that, provinces. Like in my country, in Bangladesh, back home, we have divisions, then districts, then upazila, then zila, and thana, and all that. Different categories are there. Of course, in different country, you have different categorization based on geography, and based on that, we'll choose the sample for our study. Okay. So here, even you can have two kind of cluster sampling. One is stage sampling. You collect from each cluster based on the geographical area in one shot. Or you can go for two-stage sampling. You go for the upper cluster, and within the cluster, you divide and again collect data from it. So there could be two different method here in the cluster sample. One stage or two stage, depending on the kind of research problem you have. So this is an example from US, which I will let's leave it for you to read. Okay. Now, what is the difference between stratified and cluster? As I said earlier, do not get mixed up with the two different kind of sampling. Looks to be similar, stratified and cluster. As I said, strata represent basically all the status. Small subgroups will be represented, and then cluster are based on geographical area. Then all geographical area will be represented. Okay. With the stratified sampling, we say the best survey results occur when elements within the strata are internally homogeneous. So we are dividing male and female. They are homogeneous. Male are homogeneous, female are homogeneous. We divide based on age group. Each group is homogeneous. Okay, that's small strata divide and collect the data. That is stratified sampling. But cluster sampling, we choose based on heterogeneous, heterogeneity. So when the character of population in the sample are heterogeneous, different, so we choose different cluster. So of course, in different area, people have different cultures, different way of doing things, different way of thinking, different way of living their life. So we choose different clusters. Okay, and different cluster has different cultural, environmental, and many other different things. So we go for cluster. Okay, and strata when we have homogeneous group, and we go for cluster when we need different heterogeneous groups represented. Okay, and this is one of the very important sampling method, very popular now, and even I personally advocates a lot for students to use this. Okay, multi-stage sampling, you go stage by stage. Here is given example of geographical areas, but it may work in different setups. Okay, say for example, in an organization, if you are doing a study and collecting data from organization, and you need responses for every level of management, strategic level, tactical level, operation level. Okay, but in common sense, we say top level, middle level, lower level. So if you need all levels, you decide, you divide the stages and you collect from each stage slowly. Okay, so every stage is represented in a study. That's what you call multi-stage sampling. For example, like when you do a study on the stock market, first of all, we'll decide we'll only collect data from those companies are listed in the stock market for finance and accounting. We only collect data for those are listed. That's number one condition. Okay. Number two, companies who never discontinued, continuously trading for 10 years. So from here, we'll exclude, the inclusion and exclusion. Culture exclusion, culture is already there. Inclusion, exclusion. So you are already deciding those discontinued for some time, they are not taken in. Okay, that's number two. Number three, last 3 years annual report is available. Okay, so you have another stage here now. So that's how we'll move stage by stage, finally deciding where to collect our data. Okay, now when it works very well, we say it is not as effective as random sampling, but probably solves most of the problem inherent to random sampling. As we said, random sampling, we will ignore certain subgroups of population, And thus, if we go through that stage by stage, then the chances of missing that smaller subgroups would be lower. Okay. I don't think this one I'll go through. I'll leave it to you. Okay. Now let's move on to the non-probability sampling. Just quick summary for probability sampling or random sampling. We look at simple random sampling, right? We look at systematic sampling. We look at stratified sampling. We look at cluster sampling, and we look at multi-stage sampling. And then we look at also multi-phase sampling. I didn't really talk about it. It is quite similar to multi-stage. You can go through that. Now, non-probability or non-random sampling. When do we use non-random sampling? Remember, when we cannot obtain the list of total population. We cannot obtain the list of total population. That's number one. And number two, when we do not require a strong generalization, then we will go for non-random sampling. Okay. Dr. Haider Shah, you have to give me 1 minute break.
Sure, please. Take your time. Take your
Yeah,
time, Prof.
give me 1. All right. Am I
Continue.
audible, Dr. Haider?
Yes, yes, Prof. Carry on, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as I was, just let me recall back where I was. We use non-random sampling when we do not or we cannot obtain the list of the total population. And number two, when strong generalization is not required, then we go for non-random or non-probability sampling. Okay. So these are the areas, why we choose the rationale, why we choose non-probability sampling. Looking at the feasibility, whether we can get access to everyone, whether time and cost allow us to do that, and whether we have access to everyone, okay, and we do not need strong generalization, then we'll go for non-random sampling, okay. Under the non-random sampling, the first method is called convenience sampling. This is one of the very popular technique being used by students. Now, many students ask me, is it okay for PhD study? Of course, this is okay. Okay, it's acceptable because you cannot obtain the list of total population. So what can you do? So when you cannot obtain the total number of population list, then definitely go for non-random sampling. And the first method is called convenience sampling, as it is convenient. Wherever you have the access, you just collect the data. So this is just opposite of random sampling. If you can obtain the list, you use random sampling. You cannot obtain the list, you go for convenience sampling. Okay. So, say for example, you are doing PhD in India. Say for example, and you are doing in New Delhi. You collect only data from New Delhi because it's convenient for you. Okay. If you're doing a study in England and you are living in one of the university in London and you are collecting only data from London, then it's okay because that is convenient to you, and that's how it works. So, convenience sampling, as it is convenient for me. So that is what we call convenience sampling. The next one, this is more popular than convenience sampling because many people will start drilling on you. Why convenience sampling? This is not good, not representative, and all sort of complaint will be there. Okay. So what do? We go for purposive sampling or judgmental sampling. Many people will call it judgmental sampling. You choose people based on your judgment. You think this population is individual entity is appropriate to fill in or suitable to fill in your questionnaire, then you choose him. Okay. Or we say purposive sampling. If you feel that if this person fill in your questionnaire based on his expertise, he serve the purpose of collecting the data. Okay, that's how we call it purposive sampling or judgmental sampling. This is nowadays a very popular technique used by PhD students, judgmental or purposive sampling. If you cannot obtain the list of the total population, and do not require a strong generalization, then this method would be a very good method to use. The third one, just to remind you, this method is very similar as systematic sampling in the not random sampling. It's just similar but different. It groups fall in the two different categories. If you have the list of total population, then you go for systematic sampling. If you don't have, then you go for judgmental or purposive sampling. This is quota sampling, also based similar to the status sampling. Quota sampling is you do not obtain the total list of population. Now you collect the data based on the quota. Say, for example, in Malaysia, there are three different races broadly. There are a few others also there. So we have Malays, we have Chinese, and we have Indian. So when we collect data, we look at the representative sample based on the quota given. Say, for example, Malays are 55%, Chinese are 30%, Indians are say 12-13%. So we make sure our sample represent that percentage of population. That's what we call quota sampling. Okay, it could be also based on male, female. Say, for example, in Sri Lanka, say for example, 60% are female, 40% are male. Then when I collecting data, make sure the sample represent that quota. You are giving some quota in collection of data. Okay, that's quota sampling. Okay, now. So among the non-random sampling, first one was convenience sampling, second one was purposive sampling, third one was quota sampling. The fourth one is called snowball sampling. This is also quite popular technique nowadays. So you start with certain kind of some number of population for your study, and from there you proceed on to collect more data from other respondents. Say for example, you use random sampling, okay, and say for example it is random sampling method or systematic sampling or stratified sampling. Based on that, you collect 200, and from there you move on and you collect the rest of the data using non-probability sampling. Okay, so you are mixing up random and non-random sampling. That's what you call snowball. Snowball, you're having from one and you are moving to another, then you are moving to another. That's called snowball, right? Snowball is coming from one to another, one to another. That's how it is. So you are collecting data from subpopulation, and from there you move to some other subpopulation. It's hot. No, no, no. Very hot. No, no. No, Baba Kotha will say. Okay, so that is snowball sampling. All right. The next one, we call it panel sampling. So you choose a panel, say for example 10 people, and then you collect from the data from them, and after that you call them one more time, you collect data again, and then after that you call them again and you collect data again. So you are collecting data from a panel from a few stages. Okay, that's what you call panel sampling. Panel sampling, you choose a panel and you collect data a few times until you feel like the data collected is enough, adequate, reliable, suitable to conclude your study. Okay, that's what you call panel sampling. Okay, this is very popular for qualitative research. Panels are very popular. Okay, for qualitative sampling. Even snowball also very popular among the qualitative researcher. Okay, and the next one, getting to be popular now, we call it event sampling. If you cannot obtain the list of the total population, so what you do, you just go to an event and you see many different background of people are there, and then you collect data from that event. That's what you call event sampling. That is also getting quite popular. It depends on what kind of study you are doing. If you are doing a marketing kind of study, then event sampling could be quite popular. Okay, and this is a chart that I've given you. Three questions are there. You have to ask the questions to yourself and look at yes or no, and then based on decide whether you go for probability sampling or non-probability sampling. All right. So I have already talked about the concept of sampling, the terms, and those is important. My kid is disturbing. Give me a minute, a second.
Sure, please, bro.
He wants me to change his dress. At the beginning, he asked me to change. I changed. Now he wants me to change one more time. Okay.
Okay, bro. No problem, bro.
All right. So I have talked about the concept of sampling. I talked about the purpose, reasons for doing the sampling. Two types of different sampling groups, and I talked about every sampling methods available for research. Okay, and then let me now move on to determining the sample size. How many questionnaires should be filled in, or how many data should I be collecting in order to do a representative study? Okay, So determining sample size. So it's an important step in planning for a statistical study, okay? And it's a part of designing a high quality study. You need to fulfill the minimum sample size, the adequate sample size that represent, the whole population. That's what you have to do. And also, we want to avoid oversized study. If 300 is enough, why should I get 1000? If 200 is enough, why should I collect from 2000? That is a question, okay? So now, a lot of statisticians work on it, and few of them have provided very good tables, okay? For example, this is provided by Christian Morgan, 1970. The table is given here. When you get the copy, you may not see it as on the screen, but we'll share the slide with you. Okay. So based on this table, if your total number of population is, say, for example, 1,000, then you require 278 sample minimum. And if your total number of population is 10,000, then you require minimum sample size 373. And anything more than 100,000, you need minimum 384. If your sample population size, total population size is 10 billion, you have to just collect from 384 is enough for statistical conclusion. Okay. How do we know 384 is enough? The statisticians have collected data and they have run it. They have collected 384, they have collected 2000, 1000, 5000, 10,000. They have run in the statistics and they found results are very similar. So it's always the big is not always beautiful, okay? Small is beautiful here. Even 384 gives you the kind of result you want, okay? Now, this is by Uma Sakaran, 1982. And it is the same. She has also concluded if you have more than 1 million population, even 384 is enough. 384 is enough, okay? So if you are doing any kind of research whereby the population is more than 10,000 or more than 100,000, so 384 is enough. Now, the next question is, do I need exactly 384 or can I have more than that? Of course, you can have more than that. Minimum number is 384. If you collect 370, people will question you. If you get even 384 short, people will question you. Okay, but you can have more than that. I had a situation, a student went for pre-viva of university. I won't mention which country and which university. And he called me. He said, Prof, I have collected 420 sample data. And the panel says, no, you cannot use 420. You have to use 384. So drop the rest of the data. So why? The minimum is 384. You can have more. There's no problem at all. You can have even 1,000. No problem at all. She said, no, my panel says 384, 384. So I get shocked, listening to or hearing that kind of news from a student, that kind of feedback from a student. So minimum requirement 384. It doesn't mean that's the end. You can have more than that. By right, you should be having more than this, because when you run factor analysis, those of you understand the validity and reliability testing, you will drop some of the responses because of many problems. So you need to have more so that you maintain at least 384. At least 384. You have more than that, is better. Okay. This is another one. DanielSopa.com also helps you to determine what should be the minimum sample size. This is another one. Daniel seems to, right? So I've given you the way how to do it. You can just go online and you can do it by yourself. Okay. And this is the most popular one now, Z Power. Those people use PLS. One of the advantage of using PLS is you can use smaller sample size. Okay. That answers the question, when should I use SPSS and when should I use PLS? And both of them somehow gives me a similar kind of findings if I use these two statistical software. So your sample size is bigger, then you should go for SPSS. If your sample size is smaller, you should rather go for PLS. Okay. So to determine sample size, if you want to use PLS, you can use G power. Okay. And I've given a few slides here how to do the calculation or determining the sample size by using G power. And then you can do it by yourself. Okay. So the slide will be shared, and I hope this will give you some help to do it. Okay. So I'll quickly go through this. All right. So I think that's what I have it today. I have talked about the concept of sampling, different kind of sampling method available, the controversies and misunderstandings surrounding the sampling method, as well as the sample size determination. All right. So with that, I will end up my presentation today, and I will get back to Dr. Haider Shah. All right. The
Yeah.
session is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for such a elaborative presentation and so powerful content once again, Prof. And Prof, since it's been third time you are here on call was, it's so wonderful. And I knew in advance that this is going to be rock this session because your content and your explanation, I would say superb explanation, always teaches us so wonderful things, so new things as a even though I have done my PhD from the University of Malaya, but still you never cease to wonder me with your knowledge, which is so amazing. And today even I learned so many new things from you, Prof. Thank you very much. It's the never-ending journey, and people like you who are the academic leaders, I would say, are the wonderful people to hang around, to talk, and to listen since I listen to your YouTube channel and to your different talks, so whenever you are kind enough, you send to me through WhatsApp your different function, and I definitely try to attend it because they are so informative, and I love the way you explain everything and you make things very easy for the people. That's so wonderful. A lot of students, a lot of people around the globe like you just because the way you give the presentation is so nice, Prof. Thank you very much for such a wonderful session once again. And I must say that you are a person with the multiple gifts, and you are taking advantage of that gifts, and you are contributing to the world in a wonderful way. Thank you. And Prof, should we start with the question and answer sessions, please?
And don't forget, if you want to get married second time, make sure your pillow and mattress is ready at the corner of the house.
Yes, Prof. I really love the way you started the session with the two examples were so fabulous, Prof. And that's the beauty of the expert and the beauty of you that you since you perform on different platform, so you always have a lot of things to share. But because of the time constraint, sometimes you just skip the things, and that's why I said that. In every session you bring something new which is very wonderful to see, and really it's so you are a very humble and loving personality. Thank you once again, Prof. And Prof, let me just ask the first question. Prof, there are certain questions which are very common, and people are very confused on it, particularly the people who are doing the MPhil and MS, which we call the masters, since they are the beginner at the research journey, so they have a lot of confusion. So for removing their confusion, because what you say impact a lot, please try to remove their some of the doubts, because they have requested that we know that we are asking very naive question, but you have to ask the prof regarding these questions so that we can quote it that yes, Prof Amin has said it, so it must be the valid thing. So the first thing, Prof, is the what is the best sampling method for online survey?
It's a $1 billion question.
Yes, Prof.
I know. Since COVID started, students are struggling to collect the data. Since it's impossible to go physically and collect data from the places where they want to collect the data, so we go online. And I have my own student here in Malaysia. When he distributed 500 questionnaire in the first phase, he did not even get back one, not even one. So he was struggling to collect the data. So it's very tough now. If you can collect the list of respondents, if your study involves a smaller number of samples, and you can obtain the list of total population with some other data like email addresses or phone number, then of course you can use probability sampling. So you can go for systematic sampling. You can go for stratified sampling. You can go for multi-stage sampling. Is possible. But the problem is when the population is very big. Say, for example, online shopping. So you have millions of people who are involved in online. So how to choose these people? So getting email addresses or telephone number or any other contact is quite impossible. So in that case, possibly since things are opening up now, even sampling could be even possible, or we call it what do you call intercept, mall intercept sampling, which I did not cover in today's presentation. Mall intercept sampling. You just go to a mall, a supermarket or hypermarket. That's where you get hundreds of people coming every day. So possibly weekend, you just go to the mall or supermarket or hypermarket in front of it. You just get permission, sit down there with a small chair and table, and anybody come. You feel like this person looks to be okay to fill up your question. Just request them politely to fill in the questionnaire. There's some other, of course, other platforms are available online now. I'm not very familiar with which one is the most popular one. Survey Monkey is one. There are many there. And recently, I have been approached by someone from England requesting me whether I am interested to advise him and guide him to develop a platform which students all over the world will get his platform to collect the data online. So I see it's a very good idea. It's going to benefit thousands of people worldwide. Why don't I? So why don't I get involved in it? So I asked him to do a little write up and send to me. I haven't received it yet, expecting it soon. So I hope somebody will come up with that kinds of apps. You develop an apps where millions of people be connected worldwide, and through that apps you collect, distribute, and collect the data. Say for example, Amazon, Alibaba. Their networks is very comprehensive. If researchers, we can have some kind of tagging with them, or even Facebook, Instagram, those social media we have. Somehow, if researchers can have some kind of connection with them, they can give you very well categorized data to you with the contacts, and we can use those for online distribution and collection of data.
Very nicely said once again, Prof. That's wonderful. Because what you say is so impactful and people follow you. And the new things which you have mentioned is so wonderful. Prof, the same kind of question we have another, but it comprises of the two parts. The first part is, Prof, guide us what is the best sampling method for cross-sectional studies, the quantitative study, and second part of the same question is the what is the best sampling method for the qualitative studies? Yes, your opinion on that, please.
Okay, let me start with qualitative. For qualitative research, we collect data from very small group of population, not more than 30. Most of the time could be just 10 even. Some even have seen 3 only. So it depends on the kind of research problem we have. 3, 5, 10, 20, 30 is common. 30 is a already very big number. We can do in-depth interview, we can do focus group, we can even use observation techniques and all that. So qualitative research, um, you go for a non-random sampling is fine. Even you can go for random sampling in case you want to go for a very systematic one and you need generalization, then you can go for uh, random sampling. I have explained it very well. You have to remember the 2 points. First one is whether you have obtained the list of total population. Then that decides, that gives you the clue. Should I go for random sampling or should I go for non-random sampling? The second one, whether my study requires strong generalization. So if you require strong generalization, then it is random. If you do not require strong generalization, go for non-random. I think that answers most of the questions. These two are the most important one, which many people tend to forget. These two small, the spatial, uh, the prerequisites, and the characteristics that we got to follow. So it doesn't matter with this qualitative, quantitative. All methods could be equally applied, depending on the kind of research gap and research problem we define, and depending on whether we can obtain the list of population, depending on whether we need a strong generalization or not. Okay, there is no hard and fast rule that tells you for qualitative only this, quantitative only this. There's no such thing. Even if you go for qualitative, there's no such thing that you can only use for judgment sampling. You can only use for this. There's no hard and fast rule. Research is something very comprehensive thing and a very open, flexible thing. All of us have the avenues to differ, and that's the beauty of researchers. I may say something which Dr. Haider may not agree, and Dr. Haider Shah may say something which I may not agree, and we agree to disagree at many times. Okay, and we still smile and talk while we disagree, and that's the beauty of academic world. Okay, so my conclusion to answer this question, basically, there is no hard and fast rule to tell you exactly for qualitative is this and for quantitative is this. I don't think there's such thing uh,
Yeah.
prevalent at this time. Okay.
Yes, very nicely said, Prof. And that's what I really like about you, that you make it very in a black and white so that people can understand in a very easy way. So, and I love the way you said that, yes, it's all about the nature of the work you are doing it. And it's really, there is no hard and fast rule. And you have mentioned a very wonderful thing, the prerequisite, which is wonderful to segregate and to tell us that which way we have to go. The strong generalization point is so nice, Prof. Very nicely said. Prof, there is one another question. This person has sent us this question by sending us the 20 emails, and in which he has mentioned that please ask about this question because I'm so much confused about my work and I don't want to be hit hard by examiners in my research proposal. He said that, Prof, guide me that can I use convenient sampling method for my Facebook research? I'm conducting research on Facebook usage. So, your recommendation on that, Prof?
If you're using is if you want to do a study on Facebook, there are millions, probably billion. I do not know how many users you have Facebook. It's
Yes,
impossible for you to collect the list of total population. Of course,
true.
convenient sampling would be just nice, no problem at all. Just
Yeah.
appropriate, just
Yes.
appropriate.
Yes. And Prof, one thing more, very interesting question, which you have already covered in your slides, but a lot of people they have asked that please, Prof, guide us and remove our doubt that the two-stage cluster sampling method and multi-stage sampling technique is the same thing or they are different. Yes, please.
Uh, Cluster sampling fall under random sampling or non-random sampling? It's non-random, right? Non-random. Multi-stage sampling fall under random sampling. Cluster sampling fall under non-random sampling. So again, we have to go back to the first two prerequisite questions. Did you obtain the list of total population? If you have obtained it, go for multi-stage sampling. If you cannot obtain, then go for geographical segmentation. That's why you go for non-random, okay, cluster sampling. Um, Again, it's debatable. Certain cases, you can go for multi-stage that works very well. For example, like if you are doing a study on finance or accounting, uh, then multi-stage would be more preferred. As I've given you example, like whether they are listed or not, they have been continuing operation for 5 or 10 years. They have 3 years annual leave available. So you're going stage by stage. Okay, so you have few stages there. So depending on again your research problem at hand and the nature of research you do, so we may go for that. But when you have heterogeneity is the focus, differences, heterogeneous is the focus, then definitely go for cluster sampling, right? That's what I said. Multi-stage is on homogeneous, right? You go for stage by stage, and cluster sampling you go for heterogeneous populations whereby your focus is on geographical area. As I said, in Pakistan, I don't know how many provinces you have. I think 6 or 7, right? Provinces.
Yes,
So
five. Prof.
five provinces. So
Yeah.
from five provinces, under the province you have districts, then you have sub districts, then you have also there are sub there available, right? So if you are going for a cluster, then you might divide also based on cluster. So two stage cluster would be a bit better than single stage cluster. Okay.
Superb answer, very well answered. Thank you very much for such an elaborative answer, Prof. Prof, there is one another question. This gentleman wants to ask that what is the difference between panel survey and panel sampling? Yes, please.
What is the difference between panel survey and
Sampling.
panel sampling? Okay.
Yes.
Um, even this still looks to be very similar to me. If you are doing a panel survey, you are doing a survey from a panel of respondents. And then you are panel sampling, basically you are selecting the panel through sampling, right? So if you're doing panel survey, your survey is completed based on responses from a panel. As I said earlier during my presentation, you may collect first round of data, and after that you feel that data collected is not enough. You are going for second round, and after looking at it, reviewing it, you feel it's not enough. Then you go for third round, and it goes on until you feel that you are satisfied that you have collected the kind of data you need. That is the panel survey. The panel sampling is basically when you are choosing the panel. Say, for example, you are doing a study on banking, and say, for example, in Pakistan, you have 40 banks, and you want to choose only 10 bank CEOs out of 40. So, how do you choose these 10? So, that is panel sampling. You are sampling the panel. So, possibly you can divide it as conventional and Islamic. So from the conventional, you take three. From conventional Islamic, you get three, or you get five from conventional, five from Islamic. Or maybe you choose the panel based on the provinces. From each provinces, you take two. So you have five provinces, so you have 10. So when you are selecting, the way you select it, that is panel sampling. And when you collect data for the survey, from that panel, selected panel, it is panel survey. I hope I have clarified the two terms. Okay.
Yes, Prof. Very nicely said. Thank you very much for such again elaborative answer. Prof, we have one wonderful question. They have asked your opinion as an examiner. That
Mhm.
please share your experiences as an examiner. How do you identify poor sampling methods or poor methodology chapter? Please share your experience. Thank you.
Well,
Because yes, Prof.
those of us we read thesis almost every week, sometimes even every day. As a supervisor, as internal external examiner, or being a chairman of the session. Um, of course, one of the important elements in chapter 3, research methodology, is data collection. The quality of data that determines the kind of outcome you are going to have. And the quality of data is fully, completely dependent on the kind of sampling population you have. So if you are on the wrong sample method, you are collecting data from wrong people, and thus your findings is going to be corrupted. You are not going to have the kind of findings that you have. So of course, we will first of all look at the research gap and research problem that you have defined, and we'll try to understand where the problem is rooted. For me, is to look at where the problem is rooted. The data collection must be from the root of the problem. If the problem is with the lower level management, so the data should be from lower level. It doesn't help you collecting data from the top management. They are not involved in that problem. Okay. So we will look at that. So it's not about only chapter 3. The story begins with your research gap, and then you translate into research problem, then you convert into research questions. Okay, and then you come into significance of your contribution of the study. That's why you are going to mention where are you going to contribute, you see. So then when we come to chapter 3, of course we look at whether your sampling method was appropriate, collecting the data from the root of the problem. If your data is not collected from the root of the problem, that's it. We say your sampling is wrong. Okay. And again, I have given two prerequisites. Remember, two prerequisites. Uh, Whether you have managed to obtain the full list. You did not manage to obtain the full list, and you said I use random sampling. Is wrong. I use systematic sampling. Is wrong. Okay. I use stratified sampling. Is wrong because you did not obtain the list of the total population. It's totally wrong. And then when you don't have the list, when you have the list and you say I use convenience sampling, then it's wrong because you already obtained the list of population. Then it's not convenience sampling anymore. It's not judgment sampling anymore. It's going to random sampling. So that's how we look at it. It's not difficult for us to identify whether you have chosen the right sampling or not. Okay, uh, we do uh, uh, we do also witness cases whereby supervisors somehow overlook the sampling method used by students. So we do not penalize the students for. Personally, I don't. I don't. I will not. I will never penalize a student for selecting wrong samples. I won't. Where the student has spent 3 to 4 years of time, and he has competent supervisors. Some other supervisors may have overlooked it, and we can still correct it. During the final Viva Versus session, we'll advise the students the way out. I'm very positive person. I want to see how can we help the student to get out of this problem. That's how I approach. So please remember the two issues that I've raised. The most important one, whether you have obtained the list of respondents, and that determines which method you're going to use. Whether your research requires a strong generalization, that determines which methods are you going to choose. Okay, and then in that under that category again, you have free method, and I have also in my slides and presentation, I have briefly explained when you should use which method. I think participants those have attended and those of you are going to listen to Kalwa's later and this video. I hope many of your doubts and controversies and misunderstandings will be solved, inshallah.
Yeah. No, Prof, I would say a lot, not more than a lot, people doubts have been removed because I could see the comment section that Prof, a lot of people have mentioned that thank you very much for conducting this a wonderful session and it has removed our so many doubts and removed so many confusion. Again, I would say that a lot of people they have the problem at chapter 3 methodological section, and then the most important is the sampling technique and why you have that sample size. Now what you have mentioned is very right question, how many and why. That is very important because most of the time people have the 340 sample size, but if you ask them they do not know why 340, why not 320, why not 380. So you have mentioned very rightly, and I love your slides, which have mentioned multiple sources, even the online, the G Power, or the Oma Sakran, the Kregis and Morgan table. All of them are very famous, and you have mentioned it very rightly in your slides, which is very helpful for the people. And previously, we have shared your slides. A lot of people they liked it, and inshallah, we will be sharing this slides with the people as well as we have mentioned the email address that they can drop their email address and we will be sharing the slides with them. Prof, one last question because it's so wonderful and because of the time constraint, we have to wrap up. Prof, they want to know your source of motivation because we have received a lot of questions regarding that. Ask the prof that what is his source of motivation since he has accomplished whatever he wanted because he is a renowned professor, a wonderful speaker, and at the prestige level at the zenith of his career. So still he has so motivation. He is performing on different platforms. He appears to be there, and he's always there to ready to share his knowledge. So what is his source of motivation still? Because he is doing just like the beginner. So please share with us your source of motivation.
Well, I think Dr. Haider Shah, if you have my baby is here, you have to give me a 1 minute break again.
Sure, sure, please take your time. Take your
Just give
time.
me 1 minute break.
Sure.
I am doing the session from home, and my baby
That's
boy,
nice.
if I'm at home, he doesn't do anything with anyone. Well,
Yeah.
when it comes to motivation, uh, and the first of all, you have to have believe in yourself, what you do, and to have believe in you, you have to have a strong belief in the Creator. For Muslim, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, you have to have complete. You have to surrender completely to Him, to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So that gives you the first motivation to me. Of course, as human being, I do have my own problems, health issues, and all that. We all have that. As you grow, bit more and more older, definitely you will start to get all that. But it's always the trust and belief in Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that helps you to go on. That's number one. Number two, you have to have the motivation of sharing with people. Uh, Many people come to my house and then they will ask me, "Oh, you are living so good life, and all that." I say, "Brother, to come to this stage, you did not see me last 20 years. the the pain and you know that we took, the hard work that we put, that all together comes in. That's why it brought to us here, right, at this stage. So I don't see myself like a big professor. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm a little small guy trying to contribute a bit to the world of not to the academic world in any way. But of course, the motivation is to see that people are growing with you. People who works with me, people who are surrounding me. I have 4 WhatsApp group now. uh, I think about 1,000 PhD students are connected with me directly now. I have 4 WhatsApp group, and I try to attend to all the queries every day. I try my best to attend all the queries. Students from different countries have different questions, different nature of questions. Some of them even will that there was one did not WhatsApp in the group, send me WhatsApp personally saying, "I want to send you chapter 1, 2, 3. How much will you charge?" Was very insulting question, but I did not respond. I decided not to respond. We do not trust people to do things for people. We do it free. That's the motivation that I have. As a Muslim, is a sadaqah jariyah. Good things, good deeds that we do to people. So that kind of mentality you have to have in you, and that motivates you. I am here sitting and talking to you because of hundreds of people who have contributed to me, starting from my father and mother, my siblings, my neighbors, my friends, school friends, teachers at the school, university, and until now. Every day I do things. There are so many people do many things. That's the inspiration that comes. And the third one is very important. Being being human being, we need to have a small bonding. So if you have a good family surrounding you, that works. It's a very strong motivation. Your wife and your kids, there should be the motivation, the inspiration for you to live on, to go on, to carry on at what you do. So if you have a lack of supports from your family, I don't think you can do what you want to do. Okay, as there's a saying in English, right? It says, "For every successful man, behind a woman." So webs are the very strong, inspiration. Kids are strong inspiration. If you have very friendly, contributing, inspiring family members with you, of course, that works as a strong motivation for you. If you want me to go on, I can go on, but I think these three are the most important motivating factors for me uh, to go on and trying to help people in whatever way I can do it. And for me, I don't have to look for my rizki, but the risk. My position is fixed. Nobody can take it away from me. So whatever Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has decided to give me, I will get it. Nobody can get it from me. So I don't have to rush for it. I don't have to rush. I have to just keep continuing the good works for the society and for people. And the rest I have to leave it to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. I do my work and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will do his work. So I have to leave it to him. All right, Brother Haider Shah.
Yes, Prof. Very nicely said. And that's what I said earlier, that every time I learn so many new things from you, Prof. And it's not about related to only research work. It's all. It is also related to the personality development, grooming, and having the right kind of perspective towards the world. And I like and I love the way you mentioned that yes, sharing knowledge is a wonderful thing, and that is a sadqa jariya. And secondly, your family, which is very much important over there. So all these things are actually, Prof, I would say these are the things which we need in time of this where we are. We have to have a wonderful personality grooming mentors like you, who are there, who have reached to a certain levels. And I believe that by following people like you, we can achieve the excellence which you have already achieved. And you people are the leaders, and you people are paving the way for us. And that's the good thing. And thank you for having a wonderful this kind of vision, and providing us such a wonderful opportunity so that we can learn from you people. And Prof, in the last, I would definitely ask the question that what is your message to the world as a teacher, researcher, trainer, learner, professional, and educator? Yes, please.
No, I think I have said it earlier when you said what motivated you. So the message is already there. I think
Very
you have
yes,
to have believe in yourself.
yes,
But to have believe in yourself, you have to have a strong belief in the Creator who has created you.
yes,
So you have to go back to the root. If you
true.
are out of the root, you are not, you are nothing. It's like
Yes,
a tree. If you don't have a root of the tree, then the tree is nothing.
uh,
So we have to remember the root where you come
mm,
from and why
yes,
you are being here. Okay, and I think that solves many problems, depression and many other problems that we always suffer, and lack of motivation, lack of inspiration, all kind of problem that we have. Could be easily resolved if we all leave it to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Leave it to the Creator who has created to you. All problems is leave it to Him and have your life easy and because what
yes,
comes around, what comes, you have to just accept it. Be positive. Keep
yes,
doing good works to the world, to the people, and then you will think that the things will come back to you. If you are
yes,
good to people, people will be good back to you. Be good to you. If you are doing good things to the society, you will never see how things are coming back to you. Okay,
mm,
so that's how we should be looking into our life, the things that we do, and
mm,
hopefully, inshallah, we should be growing day by day with the
yes.
blessings of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
Superb message once again, Prof. You have given to the world that they say that what goes around comes around. Whatever energy you will give, it will come back to you in a different way. So definitely believe on that. Spread the positivity and contribute, and definitely that contribution will be rewarded by the Allah, and which is very wonderful thing. So once again, I would say thank you very much, Prof, for your wonderful explanation, wonderful presentation. And at the end, I would say that indeed sampling is very important to learn, and we need to know how to draw the right and appropriate representative of sample from the population. So, as I mentioned earlier as well, that do follow the distinguished guest speaker through his research work. He has excellent research work experience, and the publication. You can email him for the future learning and guidance. He is very generous and always ready to help the people, particularly the young researcher. Moreover, I would say that a wonderful explanation, the powerful, rich content which the Prof. Amin has already elaborated will help you to learn and develop your understanding regarding the sampling technique and the different sampling size. Take advantage of all information, important tips, and suggestions shared by an expert. That's all we have time for today, and thank you once again, Prof. Aminul Islam. And I would also like to thank our audience who join us. If you have any additional question about the information shared today, please email to us or connect to the speaker directly through his email address or through his social media account. Thank you all for your support and liking our sessions. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way. Please do not miss any session, and till next session, take care of yourself. Bye.